Ashley Ortiz-Diaz, and I am a printmaker. I live in Gainesville, Florida, where I work as a curator and a teacher at the University of Florida. And today I am going to guide you through a demo on how to make a stencil from an existing drawing. Now, stencils are something that I love to use because first, they're so integral to printmaking as a medium. You use stencils in so many things, whether you're transferring your image to a block, you can use a stencil for that, or specifically and probably most prominently in screen printing, that's all stencils, right? So in making multiples, you can use this stencil for many different things, using many different mediums. You can experiment, and it's such a great and fun thing to know how to create. You can make them pretty quickly. Me and my practice, I do really fast geometric stencils using powder, charcoal powder or something like that, and I use them over and over again, and that is pretty quick, but this method is not going to be as quick as that. So let's get started. What you're going to need to do this stencil along with me is you're going to need heavy stock paper. You can also use cardboard. I'm using this heavier weight printmaking paper that I've used before for stencils. It's because that's just what I have, but using cardboard is fine if that's what you have and your image is not as complex, just because the corrugation can make it a little bit difficult if you have a lot of details in your image, but it's perfectly fine and usable. The next thing that you'll need is an X-Acto knife. So I have my X-Acto knife here, and it's got a nice sharp blade on it, so it's ready to use. After that, you'll need a couple of markers. So I have these two markers here that I'll be using mainly. This is a marker with two ends, a thin tip and an angled tip. And then this is just a fine point Sharpie marker. Next, you'll need your image. So what is the image that you want to make your stencil out of? I have this drawing here that I've created that I want to make into a stencil. So that's what I'm going to use. You can also use an image that you find online. For this demo, I'm using a line drawing, but you can use a shaded drawing or image. You just have to think about value as shape and creating value through shape. So that's a little bit more in depth. And so this one is much more simple. So for this quick demo, I decided to go with a line drawing. Next, after that, you'll need a cutting surface. So I have this cutting board here. You can also use a piece of cardboard, and that'll be fine. And just something to protect your table surface and to keep your X-Acto knife from going dull really quick. Now that we have all of our materials gathered and we're ready to start, I'm gonna go ahead and I already did a little bit of things to prepare for this. So I have, of course, my drawing already finished, but this drawing, even though it is on the heavier stock paper, I don't want to cut up this drawing because it's the original drawing. So what I've done instead is I've traced portion of this drawing onto another piece of heavier stock paper, and that is this right here. I did that in a DIY way in which I just taped this drawing to the back of this blank sheet of paper, and then I used a window as a light box so that I could see through both sheets of paper and use my fine tip Sharpie marker to trace the image. So the traced image is the one that I'm going to use for this demo. All right, so now that I have the drawing on my heavier stock paper, I am going to first start off by taking my marker. This is my thin Sharpie marker, and I'm going to make the lines thicker. Now for this stencil, all of the lines that are here are going to stay in the stencil. So everything that's white is going to be cut out. Now, we're gonna move on to the next part, which is coloring it so that we can tell what we're cutting and what is staying. This is most probably important for this part here, since it can be a little bit confusing given that these are all, black lines. So I'm gonna use this gray Sharpie, this gray marker, and I'm going to outline everything that is the negative space, the background that I'm not going to cut out. Okay, so we have all of our spaces distinguished. Well, we're gonna cut out the white and we're gonna leave the gray and black. So now we start to cut. You're gonna take your X-Acto knife or your utility knife. Make sure you have a nice, clean, new blade on there, and that'll just save you a lot of headache as you go. A dull blade will make the paper kind of bunch up on itself, it'll snag, it won't be as quick, and you'll have to put a whole lot more pressure on the paper than what you want. So just get a new blade and work that way. One thing I forgot to mention was that you'll see now that these outlines, the very outer outlines, they are gonna stay. So doing this graying of the background really, for me, helps me understand that I'm not cutting on the other side of those lines. That is actually gonna stay, and it's gonna be all of the negative space. Okay, so we're just gonna start cutting. I'm gonna start with kind of one of the more difficult things, which is this wiggly root here. And I'm gonna start because I want to kind of talk through it a little bit, and the rest is kind of pretty straightforward. So with this, I'm going pretty slow. I'm kind of like making dots and lines with my X-Acto knife instead of kind of going like as if I'm drawing with the X-Acto knife. I'm not doing that because these lines are irregular. They are squiggly and wiggly, and I want that squiggly wiggliness to stay. So I'm taking it one bit at a time and kind of making these little hatch marks with the X-Acto blade to trace this wiggly edge. And it takes a long time, not gonna lie. It does take a long time because you're going much slower than if you had like a nice straight edge, but it'll be worth it. It can be kind of hard to tell with this method what is getting cut and what is not. So one thing that I like to do to tell is to flip my image over, and let's see, yes, you can see it here. You can see this is the burr from where I've been cutting, and you can see kind of all of the little dots that I've been making because there's like peaks and valleys there. But sometimes you'll have a space where there'll be a gap. So looking at the back, you'll be able to tell what's continuous and what has been cut, where you can't really tell from here. It's really hard to tell, but you can tell on the back. So that's a little trick that I use. So we have I have cut out all of the white areas of the stencil. Let me put a little back on that so that you can see it. So all of that has been cut out, and it's now ready to use as a stencil. So I have spray paint here, just some black matte spray paint that I'm going to test it out with, and we'll be right back to see the result. So as you can see, I've already tested it out once. There's spray paint on the stencil, there's spray paint on my hand. I made a couple of adjustments to the image, adding this little back layer so that you can see the fullness of the pot. I'm also gonna adjust by using some masking tape to secure the stencil to the piece of paper. And this will help with overspray issues and with any issues with the stencil moving and getting like a double image. And I'm gonna start off kind of light with it. And that already feels much better. All right, I'm gonna let this dry a little bit. And now, removing the stencil. Just being careful because it's still wet. It'll smear. All right. And that's what we got. We still have some overspray issues here. Now that's, remember when I was talking about the thin lines, even by thickening the lines the way that I did, I still have that overspray issue there. But I'm generally pleased. I like the flow of the leaves, just some adjustments to how I'm spray painting to get rid of this overspray, and it would be perfect. All right. That's all I got for you. So thank you so much for following along on this demo. And if you end up making a stencil of your own, please share that with us, and would love to see the results. Okay, thank you. Bye.